Hi everybody, my name is Rupa, working as assistant professor in Chevron Engineering College. I'm dealing the subject electrical machines 2 for second year triple E. Today's topic is in synchronous motors, single phase synchronous motors, single phase motors. It is double field and cross field revolving theories. So coming to the double field revolving theory, first we will discuss about double field revolving theory. So this uses an idea of alternating an uniaxial quantity. So alternating uniaxial quantity, it is represented by two oppositely rotating vectors which are having half magnitude each of them. So accordingly, we can say that alternating sinusoidal flux is represented by two revolving fluxes. So these two revolving fluxes are having a magnitude of equal to half of the value of alternating flux, and each rotating at synchronously in opposite direction. Both the fluxes A and B are rotating synchronously at the rate of ns is equal to 120 by p in opposite direction. So A will be, suppose if you take in the figure, you can see two fluxes A and B. If A rotates in anti-clockwise, B will be rotating in clockwise. So both will be in opposite direction. So in the figure, see the A bit, A figure. So we are assuming that the maximum flux is phi m. Okay, so it has two components of fluxes A and B. These will be, each will be equal to phi m by pi. Sorry, phi m by 2. Each total flux is phi m and each flux is phi m by 2. So these are revolving in anti-clockwise and clockwise directions respectively. A will be in anti-clockwise and B will be in clockwise. So after some time, A and B, these will be rotated through an angle plus theta. A will be rotating at an angle plus theta and B will be rotating at an angle of minus theta. So what is the resultant flux? It is sum of A plus B. So resultant flux is 2 into phi m by 2 cos 2 theta. How many? 2 theta by 2. So that implies the resultant flux is phi m cos theta. And after a quarter cycle of rotations, if you see that fluxes A and B will be oppositely directed. Okay, on the 180 axis, A and B will be oppositely directed. So the resultant flux here, what will be the resultant flux if they are quite opposite? The resultant flux will be equal to 0. Okay, next, after half a cycle, the fluxes will be a resultant of, see here you are getting plus value, here you are getting minus value. So the phi m by 2, that is minus value, minus 2 into phi m by 2, that is minus phi m. So after 3/4 of cycles, again the resultant will be 0. This one as shown in E figure. So if you plot the values of all these resultant fluxes against the theta, we will get one waveform that is represented from theta is equal to 0 to 360. So a curve, we are getting a curve. See here, this is the curve we are getting. So see, if you observe this curve, this is why we say that alternating flux is the resultant flux, which is composed of two revolving fluxes. So each is having half of the value and they are rotating synchronously in the opposite direction. So slip of the rotor S is represented by this slip is with respect to the forward rotating flux. and when which will be rotating at the reverse direction, it has a slip of 2 minus s. Okay, the forward rotation torque is having a slip of s and reverse torque is having a 2 minus s. So each of the two component fluxes which revolves round the stator, they will be cutting the rotor and they will be inducing the EMF. So this produces its own torque. If the rotor gets EMF induced, then rotor gets torque. So obviously there are two torques. One is called as forward torque and another one is called as backward torque. So these are oppositely directed. So the resultant torque will be equal to the difference of the torques. So I will show you in next figure the torques. This one. So this is anti-clockwise, sorry, this is clockwise torque and this is anti-clockwise torque. So see here, each of the two fluxes will be rotating in the stator. These stator, in the stator, the fluxes will be rotating and they will cut the rotor and they will induce an EMF. So due to the EMF, you are producing a torque. Okay, so now we will see some formulas. See here, the power developed by the rotor is called as PG. PG is the power developed by the rotor. That is equal to 1 minus S by S into I2 square R2. So if N is the RPS, N is taken in RPS, then torque is given by TZ is equal to 1 by 2 pi N, 1 minus S by S into I2 square R2. So for P, if you put 1 by 2 pi N, you will get the torque. Now, N is in RPS. We can write N is equal to 1 minus S into NS, right? So from this, I can write TZ is equal to 1 by 2 pi NS I2 square by R2. So see, 1 minus S by S, that means S I am putting like this, 1 minus S by into NS, that becomes N. So from this N, I am substituting this value NS into 1 minus S. So if I substitute NS into 1 minus S, 1 minus S, 1 minus S will be cancelled and only NS is left in N. Into I2 square R2 by S. S is there. Okay. So from here, I can write this as K. K is 1 by 2 pi NS. K into I2 square R2 by S. This is the torque equation. So from here, I will write the backward torque and forward torque. So forward torque, if I take that positive, backward torque, you have to take negative. Suppose forward torque is taken as negative, means we should take the backward torque as positive. Okay. So TF is equal to K into I2 square R2 by S. Then TB is equal to minus K into I2 square R2 by 2 minus S. Backward torque. Or from this, we can write the TF forward torque is equal to, if you omit the K, I2 square R2 by S, synchronous watts, and TB is equal to minus I2 square R2 by 2 minus S into synchronous watts. So from this total torque, I can say that both the torques are added to get the total torque. So T is equal to TF plus TB. So here we can see the diagram. It shows both the torques and the resultant torque. For slips, see here, for slips between 0 to 2 plus 2. So when at standstill, when at S is equal to 1 and at S is equal to 2 minus S, this is the standstill condition at 1 and 2 minus S. So hence TF and TB, these are numerically equal, but they are oppositely signed. One is positive and one is negative. So this explains here why we do not, why we are not having, why we are having the trouble with the single phase motors, because we are not getting self started, because the forward torque will be like this. the backward torque will be like this. So if you pull an object front and back at the same pressure, what happens? The object will be stationary. It will not move to any side because both forces are equal, but they are opposite. One is pulling forward and other one is pulling backward. So one motion is forward torque motion and other motion is backward torque motion. So the total torque will be equal to 0. So the machine does not move. So the induction motor does not start. Okay. So now we have to make our single phase motor self-starting. So for making our single phase motor self-starting, we have to do some extra winding. We have to add some extra winding. So what is this extra winding? How it is added and where it is added? You will see now. See here, making induction motor as a self-starting. So as discussed before, I said that this single phase motor is not self-starting. So in order to overcome this drawback, we have to make this motor self-starting by temporarily converting it into two-phase motor. Okay, so this single phase motor is temporarily converted into two-phase motor by adding a phase. Nothing but for single phase, I am adding a single two phase as a single phase. So totally it becomes two phase. So this two phase making of this temporarily two phase motor, this will be at the starting only. After the motor will be normally, after the motor attains the normal running positions, then what happens? No need of this single phase as a extra added single phase. So for this purpose, the stator of the single phase motor, it is provided with an external winding. This external winding is called as starting or auxiliary winding, as it is used for the starting purpose of the single phase motors. It is called as starting winding. Okay, so already we are having one winding that is called as main winding or running winding. This is starting winding and this is main winding or running winding. Okay, so these two windings, see, listen the point carefully, this is very important. The two windings, main winding and starting winding, these two are electrically aparted and these are connected in parallel across the single phase supply. Okay, so first of all, there should be some phase difference. The phase difference only produces the relative motion between the two phases. Okay, so suppose if I am arranging the phase difference between the currents in the two stator windings, this is other stator winding, this is other stator winding. Okay, so this winding you are already having and this you are adding, starting this winding is added. So this both are stator resistances only, but main winding and auxiliary winding will be there. So if I arrange this main winding and auxiliary winding to have a phase difference of large value, that is ideally the value being 90 degrees. So when I do this, what happens? The motor behaves like a two-phase motor, right? So the two currents produces a revolving flux. The two currents, these two currents, current produced due to the main winding and current produced due to the starting winding. These two currents will be produced and these two currents produces necessary flux which revolves the motor in the motor, and these will be cutting the rotor because they have some relative difference. The main winding is having some relative speed difference between the starting winding flux. Okay, so mainly for making this phase difference between the two currents, we are employing two types of arrangements. One is in the split phase machine And the second one is capacitor start induction run motors. Now we will see about briefly these split phase machines and the capacitor start run induction motors. After that, I will deeply explain these two types also. So first one, split phase machines. So the name itself indicates that the phase difference between the two windings in the stator are having this phase difference. Okay, so see here in the winding, you can see the circuit diagram. So this is the rotor, this is a representation of the rotor theoretically, and this is the single phase supply, this is the starting winding, and this is the main winding. So that's the main winding is coming from the supply of the stator, and starting winding is also in the stator, but we are adding it. Okay, so the main winding which is shown here, it has low resistance, but it is having high reactance. And this is quite opposite in the starting winding. This starting winding has high resistance but low reactance. Okay, so the resistance of the resistor, the resistance of the starting winding, this is the resistance of the starting winding, it is increased, it can be increased either by connecting a high resistance or in series, or by choosing a high resistance fine copper wire for winding purposes. Okay, so hence we show that we see that the current IA is drawn by the starting current. It lags behind the applied voltage V by a small angle IM. Suppose the angle which is made from V, that is main winding current. This main winding current, this is starting winding current. The main winding current is actually, it is having a large phase lagging with V. Okay, and after that I am adding the starting winding. This starting winding has a current IS. So if you see this, you will get the point that these two are having a phase difference of alpha, right? And the resultant is I. Okay, and the resistance of the starting winding we can still increase it. Okay, so how we increase means either by connecting a high resistance R in the series, or by choosing a high resistance fine copper wire for winding purpose. So the current which is IA, which is drawn by the starting winding, it lags behind the supplied voltage V. It lags behind the single phase supplied voltage V. And it by a small angle, whereas by a small angle, this is lagging by V by a small angle only. The starting resistance, starting current. When compared to IM, the lagging of IM to V is more, right? E is large. So there will be a phase angle between the IS and IM. Okay, so see here, if you see in the figure, we know that there is a phase difference. We are getting the point that there is a difference. See, alpha is the phase difference between IS and IM. So this is what we are expecting, IS and IM. Okay, so between IS and IM there is a alpha. This alpha, the main alpha, the main aim is we have to produce some phase difference between the IM and IS. So see here, if IS is not there, see here in the phasor diagram, suppose I am assuming that if IS is not there, this is not there. Okay, so this is not there means IM is making an angle some theta or like that with V. Okay, so only V is present and only IM is present. So there is no any other flux to react, and there will not be any resultant current, right? So so the induction motor is not self-starting. So for making it as self-starting, I am adding some starting winding. So this starting winding is lagging with V, and the angle between the V and IS is something, and the angle between the V and IM is something. So if you compare the angles between IM and IS, there is a relative angle phase difference between the IM and IS. Okay, so this angle alpha, it is the angle which produces the EMF in the rotor. Okay, so the EMF produced in the rotor will be dependable on this angle alpha. Got it? How much we go for alpha, that much of EMF we can produce. Okay, more alpha, more EMF. So our main maximum we can go that up to 90 degrees only. Maximum value of alpha is 90 degrees. Okay, so see here. If you see the circuit diagram here in the A bit, if you see the circuit diagram, a centrifugal switch S is connected in series. A centrifugal switch S is connected in series. With the starting winding, I am connecting the centrifugal switch. If you observe that this is the starting winding, and with series to the starting winding, I am connecting the switch, because at the time of starting, only I want this starting winding. After the machine runs to a normal position, no need of starting the machine still, because it is already running. So we can we can detach the starting winding from the circuit. So for detaching the starting winding from the circuit, I am using this switch S. So at the time of starting, this will be closed, and after the machine acquires the normal running position, the switch is opened. So if the machine runs to 70 to 80% of its full speed, then the switch is open. Okay, so I will show you the next figure. See, this is the figure. Here we are taking this. This is a internally mounted centrifugal switch. Here we are taking internally molded centrifugal switch. This is an electromagnetic type of relay is used here. In this, electromagnetic type of relay is used. Okay, so suppose if you take the split phase motors, these are sealed in the refrigerator units like this. It is having one relay, and it is having the main winding here, and it is having the starting winding here, and this is called as plunger. See here, the relay is connected in series with the main winding. If you observe that this is the relay, and this is connected in series to the main winding. See here, this one. This is in connected series to the main winding. And a pair of contacts which normally open, these are the pair of contacts which normally open. These include the starting resistance. So here, see here, these two will be opening and closing. These are attached to the starting winding. Okay, now we will see the operation. During the starting period, Suppose when IM is large, that means the main winding current is large. The relay contacts, these are the contacts of the relay. The relay contacts closed, will be closed. So when they closed, they allow IS. This is the IS. They allow IS to flow and the motor starts as usual. So after the motor speeds up to 75 to 80% of the full load speed, then IM will be dropping to a value that is low enough to cause the contacts to open. Okay, so at that time the IM will be very low, because at starting only the current will be high little bit. So after the machine acquires 70 to 80% of the normal speed, then IM drops to a normal value. So at this normal value, now the relay contacts will be opened, because there is no force to attract to close. This is the operation of the relay. So in the next figure, I will show you, I am showing you the torque characteristics. So these are the torque speed characteristics of such the motor, what I have explained till now. So as seen, the starting torque is 150 to 200% of the full load torque. And the starting current is 6 to 8 times the full load current. Okay, so because of this, they are oftenly used in costlier capacitor start motors. So these machines are actually used in the applications such as fans, blowers, centrifugal pumps, separators, washing machines, and small machine tools, duplicating machines, domestic refrigerators, and oil burners also. And still there are many more. And commonly these are available in the ranges of, and sizes also they will be there. Size ranges from 1 by 20 to 1 by 3 HP horsepower, 40 to 250 watts. Okay, so for these parameters, the speed is having from 3450 to 865 RPM. Okay, so if you see the figure 36.8, I am giving their names to the figures also so that we can find out them easily. So if you see the figures 36.8, the direction of rotation of these motors, these can be reversed by connections of one of the two stator windings or not, both. Okay, so this is running starting winding, this is running winding, switch, and this is the rotor. So if you want to reverse anything, for this purpose, 4 legs are brought outside the frame. This is the frame, this round one is the frame. And these are screwed at this so that the motor does not move while rotating. So if you see the next figure 36.9, now we can see that the connections, now we can see that in 36.9, the connections of the stator winding are reversed here. Okay, so the speed regulation of a, suppose if you take a split phase induction motor, single phase, it is same as that of 3-phase motors only. The speed regulation will be, so their speeds will be actually varying about 2 to 5% between no load and full load. So for this purpose, what we can say is these are practically constant speed motors. As the DC motors occurs, these are also practically constant speed motors. And next one, capacitor start induction run motor. So now we will put one capacitor in that circuit before what I have shown you. That's all. Same is as is rotor, starting winding, main winding, the main winding, through the main winding IM is flowed, and through the starting winding IS is flowed. This is C and this is S. Okay, so what is the main aim of our single phase motors? We have to make them self-starting. So in order to make them self-starting, we have to add some winding. So that winding should have a necessary phase difference, right? So if there is no phase difference, again it is not working. It is waste of use of adding the starting winding, auxiliary winding. So if you see the windings here, you came to know that there must be some relative motion between the ISM and IM for producing and connecting a capacitor in series with the starting winding. So the capacitor is of generally electrolytic type and it is usually mounted on the outside of the motor as a separate unit. Like this. As a separate unit, the capacitor is installed. This capacitor, which I am showing you, this is extremely short duty service and it is guaranteed for not more than 20 periods of operation per hour. And each period should exceed 3 seconds. So when the motor runs about 75% of the full load, the centrifugal switch will be open and it cuts out both the starting winding and the capacitor from the supply at a time. So leaving only running winding in the lines. It leaves only running winding in the lines. So as shown in figure C here in 36.2,